Hi, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. I'm Sophie, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you some great winter reading recommendations. I do have a bit of everything in this video. If you wait to the end, I also have a small section on specifically Christmas related books. So if you're looking for something specifically for the festive period, then I have some recommendations too. But I do have a wide range of genres covered for you. So we have some fantasy, we have literary fiction, we've got horror thriller, we have some classics, and also some non-fiction. So I'm going to start with the largest section, which is the fantasy book recommendations. The first book or series that came to mind when I was putting together this list of winter recommendations was definitely the Winter Night trilogy by Katherine Arden, and the first book in this series is The Bear and the Nightingale. So this is a trilogy, so this is the first book, and then we also have The Girl in the Tower, which is the second book, and The Winter of the Witch, which is the third in the trilogy. So this series is kind of an adult fantasy with also some historical fiction and mythology and folklore. This series really embodies the winter atmosphere. This book takes place in medieval Russia, where mythology and folklore are a big part of life. The story follows Vesaas, who is a young girl within a prominent family, but she is wild, she's strong-willed, and she has a very close connection to the mythology and folklore, so she talks to various house spirits and also creatures outside in the forest. But we are also at the period in time where Orthodox Christianity is firmly taking over, and they are seeking to eradicate any kind of connection to the old folklore and mythologies. And Vesaas' new stepmother is very much an embodiment of these beliefs. So as the faith and belief in these mythological creatures starts to wane, their power decreases, and this allows Medved, who is the bear god of fear, to rise and threaten Vesaas' family and village. She must then embrace her magical powers and align with Morozko, who is the Winter King. So I had a really good time with this series. I read each book back to back, which was great to be so immersed in this world. Katherine Arden is a beautiful writer, and I love how she's brought the folklore and mythology to life. And it's very atmospheric, so we have the dark forest, we have snow, we have these mythological creatures, and it really is a great book and a great series to read at this time of year. So if you love fantasy and you love kind of historical elements and also folklore and mythology, then you're going to love this series. Up next, we have a couple of my all-time favourite winter books, and these are by the author M.A. Kuzniar. And first up, we have Midnight in Everwood. So this is really a reimagining of the story of the Nutcracker. So this is set in Nottingham in 1906, and we follow Marietta, who longs to be a ballerina, but as Christmas draws nearer, her dancing days are over, and she is forced to marry and take up her place in society by New Year. But when a strange toy maker called Dr. Drosselmeyer arrives in a neighbouring townhouse, it heralds the arrival of magic into Marietta's life. So Dr. Drosselmeyer constructs an elaborate set for Marietta's final ballet performance on Christmas Eve. Marietta discovers that this set carries more magic than she could have imagined, and as the clock strikes midnight, Marietta finds herself transported from her family's ballroom to a frozen sugar palace. But there's darkness in this land that she's been transported to, and she has to find a way back home before it's too late and before she is stuck there. So this was the first book that I read by this author, and I adored it. I loved the writing, I loved the atmosphere, and loved the setting and how she's reimagined the story of the Nutcracker and brought it to life. And this one is really the perfect story if you're looking for a fairy tale to read in winter. Then also by the same author, we have Upon a Frosted Star, and this is also another sort of reimagining or retelling, and mainly retelling the story of Swan Lake. But I believe this is also inspired a little bit by The Great Gatsby. So The Great Gatsby is one of my favourite classics, and I love Swan Lake. So I was really excited to read this, and it didn't disappoint. I had a really great time with this. It is also a little bit kind of magical realism as well as fantasy. But the story follows a struggling artist called Forster. He becomes obsessed with the mysterious and cursed ballerina Detta, and she appears every year at lavish winter parties held in an old manor, and every year she disappears without a trace when the snow vanishes. As the story goes on, he tries to unravel her curse and find a way to save her before it's too late and before she is lost to this winter spell forever. And this is a love story, but again, Kuzniar's prose is absolutely beautiful in this, very magical and lyrical, and it really suited the kind of atmosphere and the mystery behind the character of Detta. And again, this one is very fairy tale-esque, so if you enjoy that kind of story and you're looking for something magical to read in winter, then I would definitely recommend this. Next up, we have The Ice Queen by Alice Hoffman. Alice Hoffman is one of my favourite authors, and I've loved everything I've read by her. She is such a great storyteller. She is so good at writing magical realism. So this again is very much a story of magical realism. This was the story of a woman who, as a young girl, makes a wish that ruins her life, and she ends up growing up with a splinter of ice in her heart. But one day she is struck by lightning. She isn't killed, but this event causes her to reevaluate her life and sparks a new beginning. So she seeks out Lazarus Jones, who is also a survivor of a lightning strike, and he is really her opposite. So rather than being cold, his touch can burn with fire. So this leads to an intense romantic relationship between the two, and their opposing natures causes them to confront their difficult path and learn to find a way to connect again. So this is a great story if you're looking for something a little bit different, some magical realism with some complicated characters. It has been a long time since I read this, so I would really like to reread it at some point. And then we come to the last in the fantasy. This could also be classed as a children's or young adult series as well. And this is His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman. So the first is Northern Lights. Then we have The Subtle Knife and also The Amber Spyglass. So Northern Lights is set in a parallel universe where every human has a demon which is a physical embodiment of their soul and spirit. So the demons of children have the ability to change form until they reach puberty and their demon is fixed in its form. So we follow the character of Lyra, who sets out on a journey to the Arctic in search of her missing friend Roger and also her imprisoned uncle, Lord Asriel, who has been conducting experiments with a mysterious substance called dust. On her travels, she meets a lot of different characters. So we have Eirik Bernison, who is an armoured bear, and we also have some witches as well. I did really enjoy this, and I enjoyed the fantasy element. I also enjoyed the Scandinavian elements that the author has put in this series as well. And it is a great series for young readers who are getting into fantasy, but also for adults. So this was also turned into a BBC series, which was very good. I watched that. I do feel in the trilogy that the first book was probably the best. I enjoyed this one the most with the world building and the characters, but there are some more intriguing things that happen in the second and third book. So I would definitely recommend this if you're looking to get swept away into a fantasy, and it really does feel very wintry due to the fact that they're travelling to the Arctic in the cold and the snow. So now I have some literary fiction recommendations. So the first one is also a historical fiction, and this is Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. So I actually read this during a trip to Iceland because it's set in Iceland in 1829, and we follow the story of Agnes, who has been condemned to death for murdering her lover. Due to lack of place in prison and due to the fact that the environment is very harsh and things aren't in close proximity, a family who live on an isolated farm are forced to take Agnes in while she awaits her execution. So at first they are scared of her and they shun her, but she does gradually gain trust and understanding in the family. There is also a priest who is assigned to prepare Agnes for her death. The plot of this is pieced together through conversations between the characters and also flashbacks. We slowly start to uncover the reasoning behind Agnes murdering her lover. So this really follows the themes of female powerlessness in a patriarchal society and really shows us the harshness of the Icelandic wilderness. I really enjoyed this novel. I thought the writing was really good and I was really intrigued by the story and how we slowly start to piece together what has happened in Agnes's life and the location that she's living and the landscape and how women are treated in this society. So definitely pick this one up if you're looking for more of a historical literary fiction and you're also interested in seeing more about the landscape of Iceland. The next book is also another book which I was reading on my trip to Iceland, and this is actually originally written in Icelandic and is translated into English. So this is Butterflies in November by Auður Ólafsdóttir. So this book was quite unlike anything I've read before. It was very strange, very weird, but I also really enjoyed it. So the story is following an unnamed Icelandic woman who is in her 30s and she has just been left by both her husband and her lover, so has been dumped twice. And then she has also accidentally run over and killed a goose, which she picks up off the road and puts in her car. She finds herself unexpectedly left caring for her friend's young son Tumi, who is deaf and non-verbal. So these two end up getting a lottery ticket and winning the lottery and then becoming the richest people in Iceland. But they set off on this very strange road trip around Iceland together. So this is a very bizarre story with some very strange and interesting characters. We also have very random events happen on this trip, but the unexpected responsibility of caring for this young child makes our narrator come to terms with her difficult past and her difficult relationship with her own mother. So if you're looking for something a little bit strange, a little bit out of the ordinary, with some comedy, with some quirky characters and bizarre happenings, then I would recommend this one. Then we have a book that I would class as feminist dystopia. So this is The Water Cure by Sophie Mackintosh. If you are looking for some feminist dystopian recommendations, then do check out my video that I posted back in September, which is books that are similar to The Handmaid's Tale, so I'll link that below for you. But this is one of my favourite books and it's very atmospheric, very good writing, and again it's quite strange. This story is about three sisters who are raised in isolation on an island with their parents who are attempting to protect them from the toxic world of men. These three sisters are forced to go through daily rituals to become pure. But one day their father goes missing and soon after three men arrive on this island. This really forces these three sisters to question everything they know about the world and everything they know about their parents and the truth about their father's disappearance. So I absolutely adored this book. As I said, it is one of my favourite books and I did read it in a couple of sittings. I just found it so difficult to put down, and also afterwards it was one of those books that really has stayed with me and I think about it a lot. The next section is sort of thrillers and horrors. So first we have The Break by Katherine, and this is set in Canada and it tells the story of Stella, who is a young mother in an Indigenous community, and one night she looks out of her window and sees someone being attacked on the break, which is a piece of barren land outside her house, so she immediately calls the police. But help is slow to come, and by the time the police arrive, all that's left of this crime scene is blood on the snow, so they can't find the victim. And this tells the story of people who are connected to this victim. And this very much touches on themes of the Indigenous communities in Canada and how they are pushed out to the coldest edges of the country and how they aren't believed, and a lot of the prejudices that are against the Indigenous community in Canada. So I feel like this is an important novel. If you're looking for a crime or mystery thriller for this time of year, then definitely pick this one up. Then we have Misery by Stephen King. So this also feels very wintry to me. So this tells the story of Paul, who is a very successful author, and he has written a series with the main character called Misery Chastain. And in his latest novel, he has decided to kill off Misery and move on from this series and start to write something that he really feels passionate about. Misery has made him a lot of money and made him very successful, but he has really had enough of writing about her and wants to write something else. So one day he is travelling in a car and he is involved in a very serious accident. He wakes up in an isolated mountain cabin. He has 2 broken legs and is in severe pain. But his rescuer is Annie Wilkes, and she is a nurse, so she can administer pain relief to him. But she also happens to be Paul's biggest fan. We soon come to realise that Annie is very crazy, and when she finds out what Paul has done to Misery, she is very unhappy. Misery is her favourite character. She loves the series. So she gets very angry when she finds out that Paul is going to kill Misery off. He also soon realises that Annie is not necessarily his saviour. She is actually keeping him captive in her remote cabin in Colorado. And he can't do anything about it because he is unable to get out of his bed. One day, Misery goes out and leaves Paul to fend for himself for 2 days. And by the time she comes back, he is starving and dehydrated. And she has brought back a typewriter with her, and she forces Paul to rewrite a new Misery novel, bringing Misery back to life. This one is just really chilling and suspenseful, and we find more and more out about Annie as the story goes on, as Paul manages to find his way into different rooms in Annie's house. But yeah, if you're looking for a winter thriller horror, then this one is definitely the one for you. Next, I have another translated novel, and this time translated from the Swedish, and this is Let the Right One In by John Ajvide Lindqvist, which was also turned into a Swedish film and then was remade into an English film. So this follows the story of 12-year-old Oscar, who lives on a housing estate in Sweden with his mother. His father is very absent and has left them, and he is also severely bullied by children at school and also violently as well. He is regularly attacked and beaten up by these kids. So he is really angry at the world, and he's also bored and fed up of his life. One evening he is out on the playground in the housing estate and he meets a girl who has just moved into this estate. She's called Ellie, and she is outside in the snow without a coat on, and she looks quite malnourished and she is very strange. And she lives on this housing estate with her father. And as these two form a friendship, we soon realise that Ellie is not a normal girl. She is a 200-year-old vampire forever frozen as a young girl. And we realise her father is not her father in actual fact. He is going out to get fresh blood for her. So that also sometimes means killing to get blood to sustain her. But Oscar and Ellie grow really close, and she also tries to help him with his bully problem. I would highly recommend Let the Right One In. If you're looking for a vampire story for winter, this one is great. So then I have a couple of classics for you. So firstly, Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. So this is really a great classic to read over the winter time. So it is set towards the Christmas period. This tells the story of the 4 March sisters and their mother as they grow from young girls to young women. So at the start of this novel, their father is away in the Civil War. So this is set in 19th century America in Massachusetts. And this is a beautiful classic. So it has been turned into a lot of film and TV adaptations. This is really a coming of age story and about these young women navigating this world they live in, where women have a specific role in society. So yeah, I definitely recommend this. And then again, another translated book. This is kind of a more modern classic, and this is The Ice Palace by Tarjei Vesaas. So this one was very surreal, very magical. It is very short, but this is translated from the Norwegian. This is set in Norway, in the Norwegian fjords over winter, and what happens in winter is it gets so cold that the waterfalls turn into ice, and there is a particular waterfall that turns into kind of an ice palace, which the school children love. So we follow the story of Sis and Un, who are two young girls who strike up an intense friendship. One day, Une decides that she wants to go and explore the Ice Palace, so she does that one school day and does not return. So Sis is left to come to terms with her friend going missing, and she's determined to find out what happened to her and find her. This is very beautiful and explores the themes of female friendship and loss and grief. There are also some really beautiful descriptions of the landscape, and I really love this. So then I have The Mountain Between Us by Charles Martin, and I would say that this is kind of a romance, although it also has aspects of survival and thriller. So this is following the story of two strangers who meet at an airport on a stormy night. So we have Ben and Ashley. The pair meet at Salt Lake City Airport, where they are both stranded after a storm keeps them at the airport. So Ashley is a successful writer and she is flying home for her wedding, and Ben is a doctor who has just been to a medical conference. So they are both eager to get home. So Ben manages to source a private plane to take him home, and he offers Ashley a space on his plane. But then the plane ends up crashing partway through the journey into the mountains, and the two are stranded. Ashley has a broken leg and Ben has broken legs. The pilot unfortunately doesn't survive the crash, but his dog does. These two are stranded with this dog and both with injuries. So it's really a story of survival, but through this experience, these two grow closer and closer together. This was also turned into a film with Kate Winslet and Idris Elba, so I would recommend watching that as well, as I did enjoy that. Then I have an anthology collection, and this is The Haunting Season by various writers, and this is Ghostly Tales for Long Winter Nights. So there are different stories about winter and the festive period, and this contains stories by 8 best-selling authors. So we have Erin Millward Hargrave, we have Bridget Collins, Jess Kidd and Laura Purcell, and I will read what the synopsis says. So taking you from a bustling Covent Garden Christmas market to the frosty moors of Yorkshire, from a country estate with a dreadful secret to a London mansion where a beautiful girl lies frozen in death. These are stories to make your hair stand on end, send shivers down your spine, and to serve as your indispensable companion for the long nights of winter. So yeah, if you're looking for a series of short stories, then I would definitely recommend The Haunting Season. So there are another couple of books that have been released which are similar to this. I have forgotten the names, but I'm hoping to read them in December. So check out my December TBR to hear more about those books. Then I have a non-fiction which is called 50 Words for Snow by Nancy Campbell, and this was a beautiful book. So each chapter talks about snow in a different language, in a different culture, and what it means. So on the back it says, "Snow, every language has its own terms for the feather-like flakes that fall from the sky. From mountain tops and frozen seas to city parks." Writer and Arctic traveller Nancy Campbell digs deep into the meanings of 50 Words for Snow, each of them offering a whole world of myth and story. So I really enjoyed this. It was really great to see what other cultures think about snow and words that they use for snow. So yeah, if you want to know more about snow, then definitely pick this one up. So that was the general winter recommendations, and now I have some very specific Christmas recommendations. So first we have probably the most famous Christmas book there is, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. So this tells the story of Ebenezer Scrooge, who is a businessman, but he works his employees very hard. He doesn't like Christmas and he is very mean to his employees and doesn't even want to give them Christmas off work. But over the course of an evening, he is haunted by the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas yet to come. So this is very much a ghost story, but it's also a story of how people live their lives, the impact they can have on others, and the fact that life is very short and we should do things that are good. So this edition also includes some other Christmas writings. So this is the Penguin cloth-bound edition. I'm not really a massive fan of Charles Dickens. I haven't read a lot of his work. I think this is the only one I've read. So I do want to read more, but this is a very good start. It's a very well-known story and very relatable to a lot of people. So I would definitely recommend this. And also, if you haven't seen it, definitely check out The Muppets Christmas Carol. Then next we have The Dead of Winter by Sarah Clegg. So this is a book about different traditions around the world at Christmas time, and it really focuses on the demons, witches and ghosts of Christmas. So we take a look at events such as the Krampus run in Salzburg, where people dress up as Krampus and run around the streets, and other weird and wonderful traditions from around the world. So I would definitely recommend this if you're looking to find more about the traditions and histories of Christmas from a darker perspective. And then I have a very nice little book here, which is called A Book for Christmas, which was translated from the Swedish. So this is a few short stories and does also focus on some very specific Swedish traditions. So we have St. Lucia's Day, which is on the 13th of December, and this is a very beautiful little book. So it says it is an enchanting selection of winter stories. The beloved writer Selma Lagerlöf, winner of the Nobel Prize in 1909, weaves together magic and miracles, Swedish folklore and timeless fables, darkness and light. So recommend this if you're interested in finding a little bit more out about Swedish traditions. Then I have another book which similarly talks about Christmas traditions, and this is The Book of Christmas by Christopher Winn. This explores various myths and legends of Christmas and why we do certain things at Christmas. So why we sing carols, why we eat turkey, why we hang decorations. So it says on the back, featuring a detailed Christmas timeline outlining significant moments throughout history, as well as the captivating stories behind many of the more mainstream customs. The Book of Christmas unearths all sorts of unusual and symbolic traditions from around the world, from the origins of mistletoe and why it's associated with kissing, to the tradition in Japan for eating KFC Christmas dinner, and find out why we send cards, hang decorations, sing carols, eat turkey, and much, much more. So yeah, if you're again interested in Christmas traditions and the ideas behind them, then I would definitely recommend this. And then the last two books I have on this recommendation list are two literary anthologies. So we have a Literary Christmas, an anthology, which is from the British Library collection. So this contains a lot of stories from around the world again. It's also short stories and poetry and different formats. So I will just read what it says about it in the blurb. So A Literary Christmas is a seasonal anthology collecting poems, short stories and prose extracts by some of the greatest poets and writers in the English language, like Charles Dickens' Ghost of Christmas Past and Present. These texts represent times old and new. So this is great if you like anthology collections and you want a mix of prose and poetry and other writings. And then the last book is The Penguin Book of Christmas Stories. So this again is an anthology collection, and we have authors such as Hans Christian Andersen and Angela Carter. So I will read the blurb to you. So this is a collection of the most magical, moving, chilling and surprising Christmas stories from around the world, taking us from frozen Nordic woods to glittering Paris, a New York speakeasy to an English country house, bustling Lagos to midnight mass in Rio, and even outer space. So this contains writings by various authors from around the world. So if you do want some short stories to read over the Christmas period, then I would recommend this. So that was the last of the recommendations. Thank you for watching this video. If you made it this far, please let me know in the comments if there's any books that you would recommend for winter or for the festive period. I'm really interested to hear your recommendations. I do hope you found some new books that you're interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please do like it, and also don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more of my content, and I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye.